This is Take Flights with Mark Whittle.
Welcome to Take Flight. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm actually delighted that you're here. I've done a fair amount with Calm in the past, no, it's just great to have you here and be able to have a conversation with you and hear about kind of your vision and how you operate from the helm, so to speak.
Okay.
So, yeah, really pleased.
Good, thank you.
And also to acknowledge the amazing work that you've done. You've been there 5 years now.
Yeah, nearly. Start of January. I started in 2017,
Yeah.
first day back after Christmas.
Yeah. And I'm always proud to say, like, I support Calm and always share about, obviously, the amazing work that you do, but also the way that you've gone about it, who you partner with, and, you know, using music and using sort of arts and creative people to share that message. I just think it's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, it was always the idea, really, for me, anyway. It was certainly up and running 5 years ago. In fact, I'd been up and running for 11 years at that point. And I just went to have a look at it, really, as a favour to the chairman. And I only went for 8 weeks, just to literally go and I was wasting my time doing stuff with advertising agencies. And it really was a favour to James Scroggs, the chairman, who was very much a Soho face. You've seen him walking around probably with a massive hat. And that's 5 years ago, and it was so abundantly clear there was something fascinating in the way that you could position something that had a wholly benign output, but do it in a way that wasn't catering for people by like the kind of partnerships and the kind of cultural appropriation that we set off doing. Yeah, it's good.
I've got a million questions about
Go
that. But go on, quick, go. Well, firstly, I think as a CEO then, this is maybe just the way that I've perceived what you've said there, but as a CEO, where do you stand as far as like taking credit for the impact that takes place? And I know it's not about the individual, it's about the greater cause, but you've had a big influence on the direction that the charity's gone. So how do you take your own credit, so to speak? How do you kind of bathe in your own glory?
Well, as it's got bigger, it's very hard to do that, really. So there were 8 of us in the office in Waterloo, and now there's 52. There were, I think, something like 16 on the helpline. Now there's around 100, and 26 people on the phones and the chat at any time. And literally, as it's got that big, my sort of day-to-day hands-on involvement is less. You know, there were amazing people. Our team is extraordinary, and so it's really difficult. I find it really hard to not want to see everything and approve everything and be a part of everything. It's really difficult. But we do so much stuff as well that you just can't see it all. And we've got, across every bit of the business, we've got great leaders with a management team beneath that as well who take care of loads and loads of stuff. And so my job has changed a lot over that time. At the start, I was running around with bits of paper and in every single meeting about absolutely everything, especially the campaigning and the partnerships and those kind of things. But less so now. Still seems pretty busy, but it's just it's much more about kind of facilitating and steering the thing in certain directions, helping people get over barriers that they might have, trying to achieve things, and then lots of really good fun stuff like this as well.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
I totally didn't answer the question there. Sorry.
No, you did. It's great. I mean, I might ask you again in a minute. What do you do if we start? What do you do today? So, as a chief executive officer, what is it that the week sort of pans out like? Like, what does your schedule typically look like?
It's interesting to me as stuff changes as well. That on a Monday morning we have an update on our intranet. It's not you know what I mean. Our internal website about what's happening this week. And so it breaks into operations, marcoms, revenue, all those kinds of different sections of stuff. And I sort of struggle to know which bit I join in with, really, because I'll do really wacky things each week. It'll be very different. There's regular stuff. So there's a Monday stand-up. I have one-to-ones with my direct reports and just to see where I can help them trying to achieve what they want to achieve. But then my week is brilliantly random. There are big important things. Now that we're a proper mature organisation, we have, for example, a meeting called Status and Planning. So that's everything that we're doing, run by our operations delivery team. And when we check where we are with status and go through new things we want to do. So there are sort of immovable bits which are great, so I can really still get involved deeply in what's happening. But I get to do bonkers stuff. This time last week, I was at the motorcycle show in Birmingham, sitting on a Royal Enfield. Royal Enfield motorcycles have made a custom bike for us. So I went up there and stood next to it and had the picture taken and met people talking about motorcycles and mental health and partnerships. Met with the army about a partnership. So it just stuff is so excitingly weird that there are 1,000 different things happen every week.
Yeah. Do you think that's a common challenge with CEOs, like the kind of balance of, well, what should I do? What do I dip my toe into? What do I get involved in?
Yeah, I think you have to know where you have a right to an opinion and where you don't. And when you've hired really strong people, so we have a C level and we have a management level underneath that. And when you've hired really great people, our new chief marketing officer's just come from Google in Asia Pacific for the last 12 years. He knows what he's doing. Yeah. And you need to know where people have to have the space to grow. I mean, they're senior executives, not to grow necessarily, but to have their own sort of self-determination in what they do. But then I think it is also important to know what you're good at. And I want to be involved in our public-facing campaigns because it's what I've done for years and years and years. And I want to be involved in the technology as well. And I want to be involved with the brand. Actually, I could keep listing what I want to be involved with. But as long as you play to your strengths, I think you're in good shape. I think your problem comes as a chief executive when you kind of go blustering into stuff that you don't really know about, start throwing opinions around, and then leaving the room. And I think probably the most important opinions are the ones that are gauged once you've left the room, because if you've got a team who are kind of waiting for you to go and then sort of roll their eyes once you have, I think that probably says that you're in part anyway, that could happen from trying to get involved in stuff where you really have no need to. But it's difficult. It's really hard as a company grows. I just want to keep in the nuts and bolts of it. Yeah, I get that completely.
What would you say to CEOs who perhaps are in that kind of, you talk about the adolescent phase of a business when it's the startup and you have your hand in everything, and then as it starts to grow, like you've just talked about there, you do have to start relinquishing a little bit of control and trust people. Like, how would you advise those CEOs?
I think Calm is just about sort of packing to go to university. I reckon that's where we're up to. We've gone through the terrible twos and going to school. And we're just about to leave home and do things on our own. I think watching what other people do, I think learning from other people, a coach is a really good idea. Relaxing into it. If you've become CEO or if you started a business and you still are CEO, then you're doing something right along the way. I think to try to be as nice to people as you can. It's so I spent lots of time in communications, in media, in television and record business and advertising, and too often people learn from their boss or their boss's boss that just being the biggest arsehole in the room gets you the success. And businesses don't have to be run that way now. They sort of did, certainly through the noughties. But it really was. I'm struggling to think of businesses that weren't. I mean, these are commercial businesses that have obviously quarterly reporting cycles to shareholders and that kind of stuff. But I struggle to think of businesses that didn't, even if it didn't admit it, actually admired the full-on bastardry. Admired the person that was there 26 hours a day, smashing faces into the wall and hitting the numbers. Yeah. What's brilliant and liberating about Calm is that we don't have to be like that. We can decide how we want the business to be, and you can, especially for me, it's like. I mean, I'm not the oldest in Calm, but I'm pretty close, and our team are very young, or in their 20s and 30s, and to be able to think about how I would want an organisation to have been when I was then, because we have things like we work a 9-day fortnight, and our productivity has improved because of that. So every other Friday is a Calm bank holiday, and that started with lockdown, when people were just grinding themselves into the ground in screens, looking into screens. But we've kept it now, and if I think about when I was 23 or something, and just the joy of on a Thursday night knowing that you've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. We can create things that have kindness as a part of the way that we do stuff. Doesn't we have to? We have hard targets. We have to hit our number because we need the money in order to pay for the services and in order to pay for the campaigns. And we need the campaigns for people to know about us in order to know to give us money. You know, around and round it goes. It's a fairly simple machine, but I think if your business is growing and you're trying to lead it, I would learn from people that you admire. There's a guy called Zav Rees, who's CEO at Havas, the agency, one of our partner agencies, and a guy called Matt Goff at Adam and Eve, another one of our agencies. And the way that they run their businesses is exactly to go against the way that advertising has been run for decades, and to really actively and literally go the opposite way, and run businesses which are nurturing, which will retain talent, which will attract talent, and which are just nice to go to work in. Yeah. And yet still, I mean, win everything. They just win everything. They're brilliant, and their staff love them because they're brilliant, but because they also have humanity.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think we're in a generation where we've come to realise the 16-hour work days and screaming at one another doesn't necessarily work, and that fatigue just bleeds into more anger and frustration at one another, and then more fatigue and more work and
fear.
And yeah, absolutely.
But you've done your bit, haven't you, in corporate life?
Yeah, I did
What was that like? Was that cutthroat, punch in the face?
Yeah, well, this is what the whole Take Flight message is about, really. It's about recognising you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And sounds like you and what you've enforced at Calm and what the guys at the agencies have picked up on that as well, is operating within somebody else's restrictions and limitations doesn't offer you the ability to actually be yourself and fully own and explore what it is that you're capable of doing. And that's what Take Flight was all about.
Well, I think you can be better as well. I think if you do introduce humanity into the equation, you can be better. We have really, really tough targets. We doubled our revenue every year until from 2017 until the pandemic, and then even in the pandemic we hit our original target. So with lockdown, that was just like a hammer blow to us, because we're reliant on people doing stuff for us. We have a principle that we don't ask for money. We don't rattle a tin, but we just we just help people, and as a result, they do stuff for us, and that's gigs, and whether that's music or comedy or whatever it might be. It's football tournaments. It's loads of people running, cycling, climbing up stuff. Brilliant stuff, and it all had to end with lockdown. But we ended up hitting our original revenue target, which is extraordinary. Through all of that adversity, we came out where we wanted to be. But I think probably the point I'm making there is that whilst you have to be kind and you have to have humanity in the way that you do stuff, you do also need to run a business. Yeah. And that to me is just about really setting expectations and letting people know what they're meant to do. But also, we very, very early on introduced the idea that we're not a family. So I've got a son. I'll forgive him whatever he does. I'll go and visit him in prison if it comes to me.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's looking quite likely. No, he's not. No, he's 15. You know what they're all like. And I'll forgive him anything. But we're a team, not a family. Yeah. And if you're a striker and you're expecting the ball to come from midfield, it's got to be a good ball. And if it keeps going the wrong way, you can't score the goals. So it's this mutual reliance that without you being the best in the world in your position, how can I be the best in the world in my position? So we do have expectations of each other, and that's been matched in the kind of recruitment that we've made. I think,
That's a fantastic analogy. I love that, because there are roles that we have to play and we have to fulfil certain duties within that if we want to achieve the things that we set ourselves. I might have to steal that one.
Steal it, nick it.
There is this thing I've struggled with, particularly in the early years of my business, which was, where is it a friendship and where is it a business relationship?
Yeah, really hard.
And having to kind of manage that boundary. And actually, when you were speaking about the media world and agencies and all that stuff, it is a small world, isn't it? So those relationships you're probably going to have for quite a long time. So you almost need to set that expectation quite early on as well.
Yeah, and reputation as well. So yeah, the next door. I'm in a fortunate position that I'm not looking for another job. Yeah. I'm happy here, thanks. But I suppose it's hard to it's hard to think with a very clear and level head when you're progressing on your career, and your reputation is going to be the thing that's going to get you the next job. In the past, certainly in those media industries, a reputation of being nice didn't really wouldn't have done anything for you at
Yeah.
all. The reputation of making loads and loads of money, or finding the talent, or making the product, or driving a hard bargain, those things did.
Yeah. So because what you're saying really was that being nice or kind in the past has been perceived as being
Nice
weak.
guys come last, right?
Yeah, nice guys come last. So that's kind of like a weakness. So when do you think that that's changed, or is it changing now with people like yourself?
I don't know. It's really strange because calm is so different to anything else that I've ever been involved with. I don't know if the rest of the world actually is exactly the same as it was 6 years ago. I can point to people like Zav and Goffey and see they're doing stuff differently. But then I suppose I wouldn't I? Because they're attracted to calm.
Yeah.
They're also my mates,
Yeah.
and as such, we are more likely to be kind of like-minded. Maybe the rest of the world is still just punching each other in the face. I had a stint working for Yahoo when Yahoo was the biggest deal that there was in media, and God, that was just brutal. So just like loads and loads of men in chinos and button-down blue shirts, just not even waiting for you to leave the room before you got stabbed in the face, you know. And that was just the culture, and I'm sure that that's still prevalent in lots and lots of places.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not too dissimilar to what I experienced in a big tech company, Salesforce. Again,
Yeah.
I feel like it is these massive global, very, very scalable businesses that are sort of, they're 20 odd years, over 50,000 employees and still scaling at 40% year on year growth.
Whoa, yeah.
So massive. So how can you maintain a culture? And with the amount of growth, of course, people are vying for different positions. So every single year there was this kind of backstabbing that went on for people secretly going for one another's jobs, and that just didn't breed positivity, and people would hide it. And I think, again, when you hide from that, you're really hiding a part of yourself, and that doesn't feel nice in yourself, and then you're naturally going to be not as nice to other people, and the whole thing, the energy then just attracts more of that as well. So.
Yeah. I suppose the problem is if you've got a trick that's paid off in the past, which is to terrify people and incentivize them with bonuses, then and it's worked in the past, it's then unlikely you're going to change it when you yourself are responsible for that, that bonus cycle, that dividend cycle, or when you've got head office in Cincinnati screaming down the phone at you. It's hard to change stuff. I think I'm full of admiration for those two particular leaders of advertising agencies where that is absolutely the norm. The stabbing in the face, the pushing down the stairs, the completely hanging you out to dry in a meeting in order to get ahead in the game. It's just totally the norm. I've been to meetings where we've had where things have been set up with somebody else to make the meeting go how we want it to go in order to achieve what we want to get out of it, and you've rehearsed it and taken notes and you're ready to go, and then you go into the meeting and the person just utterly fucks you over and just change the agenda completely, and you're like, and so you learn from that and think, well, I'll have to be the one that does that next time, and as long as that's rewarded with success, then so it continues. For those two people that I mentioned, I think they just made a decision that they wouldn't do it that way anymore, and for Zav, especially at Havas, had some personal issues, not himself, but some family issues, which he just decided to put as his priority. And he told company, this is my priority. And I remember him telling me that during a pitch he had a phone call and he had to go. It was to do with one of his children and he had to look after his child, and he just said, I'm going, and left. And they won the pitch, and everybody realised that you could do things differently, and that was kind of the start of his not his efforts, but the start of it turning for him, I think. But it takes an opportunity. I'm not going to say I don't think it takes necessarily a brave person or an outlier. I think it takes an opportunity to be able to do it, and I got the opportunity with Calm to be able to do it how I wanted. We were so little that it was a bloody hard slog. It's not a slog now. It was a slog. But when that opportunity is there, it's good fun taking it. Yeah,
interesting though, because that bravery and that courage is such an important quality when the opportunity arises. You have to step into that. Again, that's that take flight, that leap of faith. Like, you could just sit there quietly and continue in the vein that's gone on forever, or you try and do something.
Yeah, and charities I discovered as well, having never worked for a charity, and I still sort of feel like I do. We have a charitable output. Our legal status is a charity, but I tried for us to talk about ourselves, internally and externally, as an organisation or even a business. Don't shy away from the fact that we're a brand and we're a lifestyle brand, and there are certain members of the government who have been very vocal on charities talking about their brand and saying that's a bad thing. You should just be focused on trying to do what you're registered to do with the Charities Commission. But as a business with a brand, that's why we've been successful. Taking that opportunity was sort of easy for me to an extent, in that that's all I knew how to do. I didn't know how to run a charity, and it turns out that charities can be pretty vicious places as well. In fact, that they can be the more vicious than quite a lot of other places I come across. But it just in doing the thing, doing this in the only way that I knew how, because I'd never learned how to run a charity, it turned out like this.
So the listeners will know about Calm just because of the stuff we've done in the past together. But do you want to share just a little bit about what Calm is and then how you sort of initiated that brand and how it's become what it is today?
I didn't initiate the brand, so that was founded by a woman called Jane Powell, who was my predecessor. But it's changed a huge amount since then. So Calm was founded as a male-only mental health organisation, specifically focused on suicide, and we continue to focus on suicide. So we are a suicide prevention organisation because we choose to take suicide as a barometer on society, and it's not doing well. So numbers have risen consistently up until 2019, which was when we got up to the 125 a week number. The pandemic has not caused those numbers to go up at all, despite social media gossip and all that sort of stuff. It stayed the same. But we are a suicide prevention organisation which believes that the opposite of suicide is what we should be promoting. So we shout about life. Sometimes we shout about suicide. So we did a thing called Project 84 with ITV that was sort of the thing that made it, that blew the whole thing up for us, really. A campaign with ITV and Adam and Eve, the advertising agency. So we'll shout about suicide, because when you can't talk about it, when you allow it to be ghettoised, when you allow it to be stigmatised to the point of embarrassment, then you can't deal with it. And we have to deal with it. So we have also an approach we call the HSNs, which is the holy shit numbers, which is 125 a week, which is 75% of all suicide is male. So if you are a man, a young man, a man under 40, the most likely thing to kill you is yourself. The fastest growing group to demonstrate what's called suicidality, which is a propensity to suicide, it's actually young girls and women from 10 to 21. So those holy shit numbers tell us that there's a lot we have to do, and we also, and a part of that is we have to shout about the holy shit numbers, and we have to have it so that people can talk to their mates, their family, their doctor, their colleagues, whoever it might be, can talk about suicide, because we still can't. We're starting to be able to talk about mental health, which is great, but we can't talk about suicide still. And it's so prevalent, we have to do that. So once we've established those holy shit numbers, we want to put them in the box, and then move on to the solution. And our chosen route for that is what we think of as life promotion. So we campaign to change society. So we had the world's first Minister for Suicide Prevention appointed in the UK off the back of Project 84. Hasn't done us a lot of good. That's another story. And we also campaign for personal change, so around behaviour changes, around help-seeking kind of behaviours, around the way that you talk to your mates, around the way that you talk to, the way that we would put football in a context, the way we put music and comedy and art in a context that would be to encourage communication. And we appropriate culture everywhere through those things. So running, cycling, increasingly boxing, art, comedy, music are all really big for us. And our ambassadors have done a huge amount. Our patron is Professor Green. So where you might find that a lot of mental health organisations might have Princess Margaret. We have a big, scary, tattooed rapper. He's not scary. And that sort of establishes us in a different sort of light. And then in music, we're really big with Arlo Parks and Sam Fender and Lewis Capaldi and all sorts of people that do brilliant things for us. In comedy, we're massive because we've got a partnership with Dave TV, was kind of the start of that, but also because Ramesh is such a absolute bona fide hero for Calm. He does stuff. I can't remember where I was. Well, we were trying to book a night in a venue to do some music, and they said, well, you can't have it 2 nights in a row. And so we haven't got it the night before. They said, yes, you have. Ramesh Ranganathan's Hip Hop Saved My Life in Aid of Calm. Well, we didn't know about that. So Ramesh just goes and does stuff without telling us. It's just brilliant. And I think, any party that Ramesh goes to, everybody else wants to go to too. And fabulously, that's meant that we've brought a whole army of comedians too. And then in sport, we talked about football. It does seem to be leaning towards Arsenal actually as well, which makes me deeply happy. And I'm not having anything to do with it, but with the recent films with Ashley Cole and involving Andy Cole, once a gooner, always a gooner. Tony Adams is supports us. Paul Merson does. That we were able to. It's not a Trojan horse. We're not hiding anything. We're not sneaking. It's just a horse. It's just a horse we're riding around on. And when you can have people like Professor Green and Arlo Parks and Ramesh and Susie Ruffle and Mark Watson and Russell Kane and all sorts of people just talking about what we do and talking about how useful it is and how helpful it is and how normal it is, then other people start to follow that as an example. So that's really important for us. Culture, ambassadors, and then brand partnerships right from the start. Have been just brilliant. We've managed to piggyback on brands' audiences. That means that what was a tiny little charity was able to reach huge numbers of people. And once you're there, once you have that brand presence, you've got something to work with. That first dragging it out of the ground is the really hard bit. We've now got good brand recognition, especially in younger audiences. So that gave us a head start, but underpinning the whole thing is our helpline, which gives us, I think, not necessarily unassailable, but a very strong level of credibility. So we'll take risks. We'll do Project 84. We put 84 statues of men who had died by suicide. That was when the number was 84 a week. It's now 94 a week. But we put those down the South Bank. We had a week of programming on ITV on this morning. That was risky stuff. But we have an army of psychiatrists and other academics who advise us and said, you can do that, you're okay. We would never take risks with people's lives, but we'll be edgy. Our last campaign, it was discovered that World Mental Health Day coincided with World Toilet Day. So we did a campaign that was absolutely internally done, which was feeling shit. It's brilliant. When you're trying to help people and you go back to that number of younger men and younger women too, you don't want to be saying perhaps you should. Don't only want to be saying perhaps you should talk to your doctor about your mental health, but having feeling shit written on a piece of toilet paper and stuck on a poster, you can just people go ha. And I get that. So we can take those kind of risks, and it's largely because that our helpline is just a fantastic thing. We took over 1 million minutes in calls this year. Wow. It's staffed by paid, trained, professional people, so it's not volunteers, and that's a very different approach to most. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with volunteer services at all. Just we've taken this approach that we want to pay people, we want them to have expertise in youth work or addiction or homelessness or citizen advice bureau sort of backgrounds, and that's free to call. It's completely non-judgmental, and it's for anybody that needs it, which is a big pivot that we made in the pandemic. So we also, on the back of 84, became completely gender inclusive. It was male focused. Now it's for everyone.
Yeah, Project 84. I think that's the first time I was made aware of the work that you were doing, and it was massive. I mean, I think obviously because it was the first time I was made aware of you, it had a big impact on me, but it also suddenly made me realise the scale of what needed to be done. And I think the way that you did it, edgy, but it really got the attention that it needed to get, right? 84 lives. And then I think from that point on, people knew, it takes something like that to really embed an idea in someone's head, and it was like, fuck, wow, okay, that's a serious statistic. And I thought that was outstanding, and kind of actually mirrored the time that I started working with you guys as well.
Great.
When I reached out to you, but I've also had a bunch of the ambassadors on, the bigger ambassadors. Arlo Parks, who's fantastic. Yeah. Marvin actually was originally through you guys, and we've built an amazing friendship. Marvin Sordell.
He's great.
Yeah, amazing. So I've always got you guys to thank for that, because you brought us together, and then I've got a really great friendship with him now.
Good.
So lucky to have that. And Sean Wilson, Russell Kane. Yeah, but how good is it?
Did you record with Russell Kane in this room?
I actually went to his house.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
this room isn't big enough for Russell Kane.
No, it is not big enough for Russell Kane. He actually was lovely. He invited me to one of his gigs afterwards as well.
Great.
But again, the message of coming, because it is a difficult subject to approach, and to be able to combine it with humour, like the it's shit to feel shit. And
We did, with Dave TV, we did a brilliant partnership, and there is one more to make, but lockdown put paid to it, a programme called Comedy Against Living Miserably, where we went to this mad venue in East London. The first one was hosted by Nish Kumar, and the second one, oh God, this is terrible. How can I forget his name? This is awful. It'll come back to me. Anyway, but it was a format, so we had we had comics doing sets, like big, like 1,000 people in the venue. But we also had a secondary format where they all sat around before we recorded around in the bar and talked about how completely nuts it is to be a comedian, that effectively kind of dropping your metaphysical trousers in front of an audience every single night. And there was just such fascinating conversations on that. So it was a two-headed kind of format. But what we would never do is kind of let's laugh at suicide. That's not right. We work with lots of bereaved people, and that's the last thing in the world you're ever going to do. But we can laugh at life and laugh at the nuts situations that we find ourselves, and actually for comedians to be able to do that and talk about this strange thing where they're going to talk about the most private and weird parts of their lives in front of large groups of people was really, really therapeutic.
Yeah, it's what I use comedy to get myself back out of that. Like the reason that I wanted to support Calm, or at first I didn't know it was Calm, but I wanted to do my bit for mental health. This isn't a mental health movement, but it was born out of my own experiences with anxiety and depression.
Sorry.
Yeah, he's great actually.
He's great.
Is he an ambassador as well?
He's not an ambassador, but I wish he was.
Yeah.
He's fantastic.
He's really good. Yeah, he just hosted a show called Love Trap with a friend of mine, David Birtwistle.
Yeah.
He's doing great stuff as well. So.
Yeah. Sorry, I cut across you.
Yeah, no worries. What was I saying? So,
comedy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's my fault.
Yeah, I got it. Joel Dummett.
Yeah.
No, the reason that I wanted to support Calm, I was saying I didn't know it was Calm at the time, but because I left the corporate world and started this out of my own experiences with mental health, I knew I wanted to make it a part of the messaging, like intermittently, and do my best to raise that type of awareness. But because it was born out of that experience of mental health, I do occasionally dip back into that at varying times, and comedy is that outlet. Like I'll go onto YouTube and I'll search like a Russell Kane or whoever it is, and that's what can lift you back out of it.
Yeah.
Just having that separation for whatever it is that's got you in that mood in the first place, or brought you down or whatever. Having the comedy angle to do that. So, anyway, I was talking about another reason why I left the corporate world. I find it interesting that a lot of, and I know you said you're an organisation, which I want to talk more about in a moment, and you mentioned some of the reasons that you've grown, and I want to talk about which one do you think are most important. But before that, I find it really interesting that a lot of CEOs of charities tend to be people like yourself who have had experience in these big corporates, Yahoo, Virgin, BBC, and the other places that you worked. What led to your transition? I know you said you had like that kind of 8-week dipping your toe in to help someone out, but what was that transition like?
It was, so I'd worked for really big corporates most of my career. I started off in the record business as a manager, so I was on my own managing record producers and artists, and then went into TV and got into bigger television companies, like you say, went to BBC, and then went into advertising into a really big global network called BBH. And the agency had been sold, and I was consulting. I mean, I was perfectly happy doing it, I think. Just basically advising advertising agencies and media companies on kind of how to make themselves more valuable. So it's fundamentally around sort of modernisation of their output and digitisation of the product or their processes, and actually their products more than their processes. And literally, the chairman of Calm rang me up who I knew not well, but a bit, and so we'd part a company with our CEO, just come and have a look at it and tell me what you think, or what we might do with it. And it was just very clear immediately that there was a brand there that was so powerful, and it was, there was an event, and Calm was very small, male focused. It was quite, it was much more gritty than funny. Do you know what I mean? It's its point of difference then was, I think it's probably fair to say, was that it was tough. It was much tougher than other organisations in its approach to solving to solving this issue. And I was at an event, and it was a running event, and somebody ran past who had lost her partner to suicide. And when she went past the cheer point, where those things you have at events, so, and the Calm ones are always pretty raucous. And as she went past, like the whole of the cheer point, like enveloped her and picked her up. And I sort of watched what was happening. Honestly, I'm not making this up. Watched what was happening with the people that were attracted to it. It was the people that were loyal and hugely motivated by it. It was a very small number. They were mainly people tragically bereaved by suicide, and we still try to help. And that's still a core part of our reason to exist. But the love that woman had for what Calm represented, because she didn't want anybody else to go through what she'd gone through, losing somebody to suicide. Yeah. I often heard as well, right at the start, if my son or if my dad had, or if my mate had known about Calm, he might still be here, or those kinds of things. But the power of it, as a benevolent force, but one which exists in a contemporary branded world, where benevolence and brand power don't. Most things try to appropriate benevolence, don't they? Like, I don't know, name your brand, and they're going to try to suggest that they're doing something good in the world, and they're not. They're just kind of putting their hat on and going, yeah, we're really good. I mean, like BP, pull the other one. But when you've got an opportunity with something which is so interesting, or so powerful, not interesting, so powerful, but only does good, and the opportunity's there to kind of steer it into a world of contemporary branding, contemporary communication, then that's why I'm still here 5 years later. Wow, that's exciting. That's really interesting. And you could, that's the true story.
That's amazing. It sounds though like you're no, it really is, because I feel those moments when you're telling the story. I feel that because my brother just ran the London Marathon, and you get that. Obviously, that's a bigger example of an event, but you feel it, don't you, when runners run past, and whether they got the Calm on the back or whatever other charity that they're supporting. Like, they're just such an amazing, they're great places to be, and you can get such a lift off those things. It's
good for the soul, definitely. We had at the British 10K, so the 10K that goes through the centre of London, we had a kind of a rounding up of highlights of the year that people, the Calm employees, were sending in. And somebody sent in something that I saw as well at the time, which is somebody ran past, they weren't running for Calm, and as they ran past our cheer point, which is massive, and we've got confetti cannons and air horns and all that sort of stuff. As this person ran past, he kind of put his hands up over his head and just pointed and said, "I'm here because of you lot." And he wasn't running; he was running for someone else. He said, "I'm here because of Calm," and then carried on running. And you do go, "Fucking hell, that's fucking amazing." Yeah. It is an extraordinary thing to be able to think about.
Save someone's life.
Yeah, but it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was our helpline that did it. But in another way, without us making the money through the campaigns and through the movement. So this is why we term it a movement against suicide. We're leading the movement. We're not the movement. Yeah. Without that, we wouldn't be able to pay for the helpline. So you can go, sort of contributing to that.
But do you wake up? And maybe this is getting a bit fluffy, but do you wake up thinking, "What a great cause to be a part of"?
No. You can't do that. Okay. You can't get confused. You can't confuse the mission with the job. They're different. Okay. My job isn't to prevent suicide. My job's to run Calm, and Calm is there to prevent suicide. You get yourselves into all sorts of bother. You strangely, that leads to underachievement, because you can start to feel that you're doing your job just because you have your job, just because you turn up. you can't get confused with the mission and the job.
Very profound. So does that mean there's a purpose for each then? There's a purpose for you find your purpose in doing the job.
In doing the job.
And you find a purpose in having the mission.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I'm very pleased that now I find that people in their early 20s want to work for benevolent organisations, charities, not for profits, whichever way you want to phrase it, because purpose has become a key part of what people want to achieve with their lives and their career. Certainly when I was a recent graduate, or even actually fighting my way up the slippery poles, charities were for people that couldn't do anything else. It's that awful. I loved the Vast Show and Harry Enfield and all those things, but that horrible thing, looking back on it now, where do you remember that? You probably won't remember, but it was like a mock ad for teaching, to choose teaching as a career, and it was and the line was those that can't teach, and it was like, if you can't get a job doing this, or can't get a job doing that, you can't get a real job, you can be a teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, the offensiveness of that bullshit, and I think we're hopefully past that. And we don't think that about nurses, although, we do pay them minimum wage. Just anyway, don't get me started. But fortunately, purpose now does very much constitute a part of what people want to do. So we can attract really, really great people because of our purpose. But we can't hire people who want to work for Calm because they want to change the world, but don't understand that to change the world, you do your part, you do your bit. And back to the football team analogy, you can be you could be Ashley Cole, so Ashley Cole's just done a series of podcasts. For us, Ashley Cole, the best left back Arsenal ever had, probably England ever had.
Controversial. I'm an Arsenal fan, so I'm just saying that out of bitterness.
Yeah, you were talking, I did not read you talking about Wayne Bridge. Yeah, there's an argument to be made.
Yeah.
Not a good one. But Ashley Cole or Tony Adams, who's extraordinarily, to me, I get text messages from Tony Adams, which I just stare at my phone for about half an hour. But he's not winning the league by banging in the goals. You do your job, you contribute to the team, and it's that the output is enjoyed by the team, but is not equally shared throughout the team. You have your role to play, and one bit of that goes, and the machine doesn't work anymore, and the whole thing fails. But I think a problem that besets quite a lot of charities is that people will kind of consider their reward to be coming in heaven, to be coming in heaven, and that by turning up, you got the little sprouting wings starting already. And then they kind of get very close to the problem and start to hug the problem too much, and that's really holds you back. You've got to be able to think about running a business, and especially in comms, marketing and communications, our campaigns have to be planned in the way that you would plan a campaign to sell an Audi or to get somebody to use Google Chrome rather than Vista. You have your objective, your strategy, your creative execution, your media planning, your production, and you put those bits together properly. You don't just come charging into the room and start screaming, "We've got to stop suicide." You do it with kind of steely-eyed effectiveness.
That's fantastic. I've just spoken with some special force guys. There's one of them was on the SAS Who Dares Wins. They got a company called Through Dark.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're aware of them.
Yeah,
they're great. And that's I think one of them even in their bio has steely-eyed.
Oh, really?
Whatever. Yeah. So
it's gravity, isn't it? I'm a steely-eyed rocket man.
yeah. So what were those? Could you just go through those areas of the business, or the areas of the organisation at least, that you just talked about there?
Well, that was just about kind of how we would plan a campaign.
Okay.
The areas of Calm, we have operations, which so it's kind of gone in 3 phases. Do you want me to go into that?
Yeah, I'd love you to.
Okay, so the first bit was about modernising our modernising.
I just want to say something before you do. The reason why that's so important is because so many people who listen to this are all about purpose.
Yeah.
They want to have their impact on the world, which is why what you've said is just really, I've really, really heard that. Don't be too tied to the mission.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to really help people who are themselves, whatever their purpose is, chasing that thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've already got the mission. You're doing it. You're doing the job. Now, how do I do it? You have to be clinical. You have to plan. You have to run a business like you're selling toothbrushes or tractor parts. You have the same operational efficiencies. So the first part of what we had to do was really modernise our communication skills and our communicational effectiveness. So that involved working with the right agencies. I knew lots of people, so I wore out several pairs of shoes walking around town, trying to persuade people to come and work with Calm. And it's pro bono people. These agencies, I mean, these are the best agencies in the world. They work for us because they want to. So they are part of the mission.
Yeah.
Don't make any mistake. However, when you do work with, whether that's Havas or Adam and Eve, or sorry, if I start listing, I'll leave somebody out, so I shouldn't do that. But if you're doing that, if you're planning a campaign, you can't just charge around wanting to achieve the objective. You know that you plan things methodically, and so we were very fortunate to work with those agencies to get the big success of a campaign we did called Load of Chris with an agency called BMB. It was in partnership with Topshop, Top Man,
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
which is hilarious and brilliant. Love Island star crying into a bottle.
That's it. Yeah, I saw it. It was great.
Not ludicrous, ludicrous. That suicide is the single biggest killer of young men. So you get the laugh, and then you bang in the face. Brilliant. That wasn't us. That was BMB.
Okay.
And then brilliant partners at Topshop, Top Man.
It was Chris Hughes, wasn't it?
It was Chris Hughes.
Yeah.
And Chris is an ambassador, as is Kem.
Nice.
Who are both just ace.
Yeah.
So communications had to get really good, and so we went from a campaign called Notes, which was really hard hitting, where we published whole suicide notes on the back of newspapers. Wow. And the Samaritans media guidelines, which are correct, tell you never to publish any content. But we've really felt this campaign worked, that these are people that had survived. There's a thing called the Papageno effect, which states that it's a clinical thing, that hope is as contagious as suicide, or survival is as contagious as suicide. So suicide is highly contagious. But if you can demonstrate that it's possible to get to that point and then come back, that's also a contagious thing. And that's what this was. So the line was, if you thought that was hard, if you found that hard to read, imagine how hard it was to write. And it was an actual suicide note, but by somebody who had survived by using Calm's Helpline. Wow. So we went from that. Then we went to Load of Chris. Then we went to 84. And 84 just went bam. And after that, we've been going again and again and again. Most recently, our one which was fantastic with Tyson Fury, called Invisible Opponent, was with AMV and Seven Stones and Seven Stars, a media agency, which is a film that we did. ITV aired it. Amazing piece of film. And then we're doing more internally now. So we did one called Stay, which I really liked.
Yeah, I was part of that, posted for that. Joe Marler as well. You did a great video with Joe Marler.
Yeah, Joe's the Scrabbling one. Yeah, the amazing on YouTube. That wasn't us. Somebody brought that idea to us. But we're more and more creating our own internal stuff. We have a creative studio internally now as well. So that was the first thing. Second thing was operations, and we had to get really good back office stuff. We had to get good as we had more people, making sure payroll happened on time and those kind of things, obviously. But for me, it was about delivery. And when I was at Yahoo, you just pummeled by the project management office. So I ran entertainment for Yahoo Europe, so I had any time maybe 15, 20 bits of product that were needed to go up, and I had to make the money off the back of them. And the project management office were your absolute masters, and you had to work with them to get stuff done. And we didn't. We had a lot of really great intentions and a lot of incredible brand promise, and our marketing and comms were really flourishing. But our ability to deliver was still a little bit like, we were making it up on the spot quite a lot of the time. So we built that out with a new chief operating officer with a brilliant delivery function, which now means we've got project management, product management, real proper bona fide product management, which is allowing us through a data innovation team to build real technological stuff. Our helpline, human helplines have a law of diminishing returns, that as your staff gets bigger and bigger and bigger, your overhead grows at such a rate that your costs outstrip your effectiveness at a certain point. We're not at that point by a long, long way. But what's very clear is that technology is the way to. We have to create a limitless shelf because we have a limitless audience. And yet, if our route to help people is somebody talking on a phone, we're never going to get enough people to be able to do that. So building out technological products that enable us to help people without the need of a human. If they don't need the human's always there for them if they don't need it. So that was operations. And now we have to start thinking about customer experience. We deal with each customer, I'm doing bunny ears, as kind of an individual, and we haven't yet managed to really create that customer experience. All the stuff you'd have been doing at Salesforce, we haven't really created that holistic view of the customer. How are we helping them? What are they getting out of us? What can we give them to help them next? What would they like to do for us? And really understand those customer journeys, because our sole point of contact with our customer, again I'm doing the rabbit ears, is what can we do to help? And it has to be that. It can never not be that. It can never be give us your money. We'll never have chuggers. We'll never do direct mail. It will always be what can we do to help you. And so that's how we've grown it. How we've grown the organisation. There's 52 of us now, which is a nice size. That's just in the head office in Waterloo, and then there's the helpline is in the northwest as well.
Customer experience, operations, communications.
Yeah.
What excites me about that is, and it doesn't surprise me actually. You think you're going to come in and speak with, again, I'm going to say charity, but I know you're calling it an organisation.
Oh no, it is a charity. I don't want to I don't want to be precious about it. I just think that it's kind of nominative determinism. People know what a charity is, right? It's sort of a bit shuffly, and are they volunteers? Do they get paid? Are they volunteers? Do they get paid? This is a proper business. We've got stuff that we have to make. We've got partners in ITV, Molson Coors. We work with Carling a lot. We make a lot of content. We have a helpline. We have to make all of that money. There are lots of things that are moving, and there are people that there are external pressures that mean that we can't kind of, wander in at 11 o'clock with it was only missed the bus. This is a business, because people rely on us. Most importantly, our customers rely on us, and our customers are people who are at risk of suicide or have been bereaved by suicide. Those are right at the very spiky end of it. The rest of our customers rely on us because they want to be a part of what it is we're doing, which is trying to make people's lives better.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think because I work as a coach with largely CEOs and athletes as well.
Am I talking absolute bollocks?
No, this is why I love it, because and I've searched for a formula for purpose, fulfillment, whatever that is, and that's really hard to nail down to a specific way to run something, because everyone's unique in the way they view things, what makes them happy and what makes them fulfilled ultimately. So it's more about questions that you ask yourself rather than a specific formula of do X and achieve Y. Whereas what you're talking about there is, as a CEO, no matter whether you're selling a car or selling not committing suicide, it's the same process, which I think is fantastic and transferable across any industry.
I think it has to be, only because I don't know how to run a charity. I said it, and it does sound so bloody, humble brag kind of. I don't mean it that way. I mean, I guess the thing that. So when you walk into Calm, I said it right at the start, and honestly, it is true. We've got this beautiful building in Waterloo now. It's our own. We don't own it. We rent it from the railway above. It's a railway arch. The railway that didn't give us a single break on rent all the way through lockdown.
Oh, really?
That very, very clear. I wanted it to feel like you were in a record company with a hit. That's what I wanted it to feel like, because that energy, that is honestly, best place in the world is a Friday afternoon in a record company when you think you've got a crack at number one or top 10.
If you distill that down to one Friday that you had with a hit that you were a part of, what would be what's the one that you think of?
Stuff that was really I'll tell you what was really exciting when we you didn't know for sure on a Friday what the chart positions were going to be, and we had number one and number two. That was exciting. Yeah, that was really good. If I tell you the records, I'll age myself.
Come on, you got to say the record.
It was Bop.
Nice.
Which I just actually, we had our Christmas party, and the whole of Calm staff just conspire to take the piss out of me as much as so playing Bop and everybody taking the piss. I love that record.
It is a great record.
It's a great record. We had
remember that.
Bop was number one, and I believe it was Bon Jovi was number two.
Okay.
I did Bon Jovi record as well at the same time, so that was exciting. But it's that sort of feeling of palpable success with something that you love, and the team at Calm are so dedicated to what we do. That feeling of it, honestly, it isn't weird. And if somebody wanted to hear me say that and sort of selectively hear bits and go, oh, it's all about brand and money and being in a record company, is it? No, it's not. It's about a group of people on a Friday afternoon who have done a really great job, and we go through the things that we've achieved and the things that we're going to achieve, and we all know absolutely that all those achievements cumulatively will save people's lives, will mean that people don't lose their dads or their sons or their mums or their friends. It will mean that people who are feeling absolutely fine can continue to feel absolutely fine. It will mean that people who are feeling a bit shit don't feel totally shit. Yeah. It'll mean that 99%, this is a completely made up statistic, of people in the UK won't want to use a helpline. They just don't. That's not a thing you want to do, talk to a stranger about how you're feeling. Most people don't. But so when we do something like Stay, when we do something like Invisible Opponent or Comedy Against Living Miserably, or working with carling, with football, with Seat cars, with all these sorts of things, we can just nudge people so they won't ever go down that route to feeling so completely shit they view taking their own life as the only route. And on a Friday afternoon, we all know that's what we're doing, and when we can celebrate the success, it feels like a record company with a hit, because it's something that we love, something we're dedicated to doing, and something that we can point to as being like properly successful.
Brilliant. It's so amazing to hear. I think the getting to know more behind what the brand is and what the charity is and what it's doing is it's really nice. It makes me want to support far more. And I think what you're saying there is how we perceive something externally, right? So you can look at it and go, oh, it's about brand, it's about money and whatever. But what I'm hearing from this conversation is it's about kindness. It's about trust. Trusting those who have the knowledge. It's about trust, creativity and innovation.
Yeah.
It's about risk with the suicide notes in the. It's like, so these are the things that make the brand, and it's just, the right people will see it in the right way and then want to show their support, and the ones who don't get it and see it differently won't. So it doesn't matter. And
that's all fine as well. It's we've really got worried a lot about our audience segmentation, and we had an audience targeting process called High Risk, which felt absolutely right, that we'd look at audiences which over-index on suicidality and suicide, and we would go and try to help those people, which is the whole male thing. 75% of suicide is male. So we started a helpline for homeless people, not to help them get off the street, because we can't do that, but I can't imagine how shit it must feel being homeless. So you can ring this number and Calm will talk to you and try to help you to feel a little bit less shit, but also help people with certain other practical elements of that. And we got quite deeply into this high risk strategy, and then it started to feel that was wrong, that to start a dedicated helpline for an audience isn't the way that you actually solve the issue. The way you solve the issue is in your comms, that you put very, very high walls around a particular piece of communication, so that when that middle-aged man sees Calm, he will think Calm is for me, and not maybe not just for me, but will definitely think Calm is for me. When we go, and we'll talk a lot about suicide to that audience, we'll talk a lot about being a friend, we'll talk a lot about, we did a thing called Best Man Project, which I still love and I really want to roll out again because not many people saw it, which was just asking the questions, why is it you're only able to be nice to your friend once when you're his best man, and the rest of the time it's the bants, and it's really, if anybody on YouTube look for Best Man Project, it's beautiful. So that man views Calm as being for him. When we communicate to 16-year-old boys and girls through Instagram, not as in our own, but we partner with Instagram. We do a thing called GramFam, or with Topshop Top Man, RIP. Those people, we don't talk about suicide. We did a lovely line of clothing with Topshop and Top Man, with their labels on the outside about how to look after yourself. That isn't about suicide, but those people think that Calm is just for them. And you've just got to be really laser guided with those comms to mean that you can be very broad, but you can also be very precise.
Yeah, Is there someone who you feel like you can't reach or speak to?
Yes, there are places that we don't have credibility, and there are other organisations that do. So a part of the strategy that I'm hoping that we'll be able to get going in this forthcoming financial year, which starts in April, is that we'll fund other organisations.
Right. Amazing.
I think it would be we can try to get to deeply underprivileged kids, where gangs are a real issue, for example. Where drugs are an issue. Where I don't know we have the right to do that, or I don't know that we'd be successful. Whereas there are organisations, grassroots organisations, that there are a few that we've spoken to who absolutely have the credibility. They are there, they're living in that world, and we can, whether that's through financial contribution or whether it's through expertise or just lending some of our resource, introducing them to the right people, putting campaigns together, putting practical plans together, we can get to audiences that I think our brand is stupidly stretchy. It's crackers that you can have one brand that does all of these different things, that makes people piss themselves laughing on Dave, has them crying on This Morning, has them playing football with I won't keep listing, but it's so stretchy. But there are places it can't stretch. But what we can do now, because we've reached that size, is that we're able to continue what we need to achieve, our mission, by enabling other organisations to do it.
Fantastic. I think that's such an important thing, though, to have the brand awareness of what you can and can't do. For ages, I tried to reach everyone and inspire everyone with this, and I was so biased in my own opinion that you can live by your purpose and make money and have a happy life by doing that I wanted everybody to hear it. And probably only recently I realised, no, do you know what? My audience is this person, and that's who I'm speaking to now. And the step further then is what you've just spoken about, which is, and I can support and uplift other people who can reach the ones that I can't.
Yeah.
So
you've got to swim where the water is warmest, and there are certain audiences that we can get to and help really efficiently, and that's what we should do. There's no kind of business imperative either for us to be universally known. For example, I would really like us to be the organisation that sticks with 16 to 24-year-olds. So in the pandemic, we saw 16 to 24-year-old use of our website doubled. Use of our helpline across the board went up by just around 40%. But we've doubled that audience, and we continue to hold that audience, that younger male and female audience. All genders, anybody that wants us. I would really like, as an ambition, for those people to have Calm with them forever. I really like the idea that nobody's got nobody because everybody's got Calm. And I don't know that if you're 16, I think you're too old for Childline, probably. Or you're not, but you probably perceive it as such. Mind and Samaritans probably ain't doing it for you at that point. If we can get people to love Calm now, and that's quite a difficult brand ambition for them to take it all the way through their lives. But I mean, it works for Google, it works for Apple. You don't grow out of those kind of brands, and that's the ambition for us, is that we'll still continue to be able to talk to them in their different life stages as well. That we'll be relevant when they're 30, 40, 50, as we are when they're 16. Yeah,
it's so great to hear. That's fantastic. It's literally the Steve Jobs philosophy, isn't it? It's fantastic. What's your personal growth been like the last 5 years?
It's great. It's hard to do. People say, "Well, keep learning," and I have learned a great deal. I've learned a lot. I've never run a business outside of apart from being a one-man band. I've never run a sizable business that has to make payroll without the support of a larger corporate structure. But that said, I've never run one without the overbearing sort of distraction of a larger corporate structure that will stop you doing what you want to do because you have to do things in a certain way. To me, the change has been relaxing into, or the growth has been relaxing into doing things how we want to do it because we can. We are absolutely blessed with our board. They are supportive. We had an approach which we called somewhat pretentiously an Avengers Assemble approach.
Nice.
So I sat down with Scroggs, the chairman, and we decided what do we need? Where do we need support? And so we needed legal support, we needed financial support, we needed HR support, so we went and recruited trustees to join our board that have those levels of expertise, and they have not only